Hi, everyone. I'm Meryl Stewart, CEO of Marketing and Business Solutions. Today, I wanted to talk to you about MicroCampaigns. It's kind of, a small version of a marketing campaign. It may be one of your initiatives in your marketing toolkit, but it's something that's very specific and very focused for maybe a certain time of a month or a certain topic that you want to try to get out there and promote related to your brand. So I wanted to give you some quick tips on how to set this up. You don't have to necessarily do a full-blown marketing plan, but it's good to plan out the campaign. And so here's some components to think about as you're planning your micro campaign. One is you got to set your goals. You've got to decide what it is that you're trying to accomplish, whether it's increasing engagement among your customers or your audience, or maybe it's raising money, or maybe it's raising, awareness in a different way. Maybe you want people to act on something and purchase something or respond to some type of service that you have out there. Either way, setting that goal, I would say financially, to understand how you're going to measure success is really important and probably the first step. The second part to really think about is the timing of this. So a micro campaign for our clients really kind of takes place around a specific month or specific day of a month where you can kind of build some theming around this. But think about, a time of the month or a time of the year that makes the most sense to do this campaign. It may be associated with an anniversary that you have. Maybe you're celebrating something related to your business or your organization. And so the timing of it, has to hit just right. I would say a micro campaign is probably about a 4-week campaign, something that doesn't, necessarily from a theme perspective flow into all of your other marketing and communications, but something that really has to stand out on its own because you're trying to build awareness of this topic or focus specifically. So think about the theme of this, the timing of it, and then the theme. What's the focus going to be? What I've done when we work with our clients is that we outline every week. So let's just say we're running a micro campaign in the month of September. We will literally schedule out what the content looks like every single week of the month of September. And every week gets a different theme that's related to the overall kind of topic that we're trying to bring awareness to. And each week then has, kind of stories and components that tie into that theme. So part of the theming, I will say, that's really important is really kind of breaking down the types of messages that you're going to use within the theme for that week. And so this micro campaign has kind of this, 30,000 foot view theme, but then each week carries its own part of the story. So for example, in week 1 of, let's say, September, we might be focusing messages, related to, actually September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. So we might be focusing messages on certain types of, life stress, behaviors that people exhibit, tips for anxiety and depression, things like that. And so all of those messages, what we do is kind of put this into a table or a chart and just outline what messages do we want to make sure that we hit that first week of September. What's the call to action going to be? What is it that we want people to do? And then how often are we going to say it? So are we going to post this two times a day, 3 times a day? How many platforms, if we're using social media to get this out, are we going to use? So really kind of thinking about the audience that you want to connect with and how they're going to access this information. We also break down even the types of images that we're going to use to make sure that they really tie together with the messaging that we're creating. You want to make sure that something is visually stimulating, that people can connect with what it is that you're trying to say very quickly, because it is social media. For the most part, you may be using that as your main platform or channel. And so it's important that people can pick it up pretty quickly and then respond to it, that it evokes some kind of emotion for them to want to do something next. We also use and suggest for micro campaigns that use some type of e-communication, and you might even want to use, PR and media as well, depending on what you're trying to accomplish, or maybe if there's an event or some other opportunity for the media to get involved and cover a story. The e-communication piece is important because you can really segment campaigns based on your audience that go out at during those weeks of the month. And so in my example, the first week of September, we might highlight a success story, services, programs, different products that might help people with this type of issue or to bring awareness. And we would include those kind of multiple times throughout the month to make sure that we have our frequency number, that we're trying to get people to see what it is that we're doing, not just once, but multiple times, to try to connect with them and have them take action. The other thing that we're looking at when we're planning micro campaigns is really honing in on the audience. We have to have a plan, for individuals to respond. We have to have a plan for corporate professionals to respond. We may need a plan for other companies or groups or past, supporters or customers to respond. And all of those messages have to be slightly tailored to that audience. The theme might still be the same for the week, but how we say it and what we talk about is really important, that it's tailored to the audience that we're trying to speak to, because they're not all going to hear it the same way. And what appeals to an individual might be different than what appeals to a company or a group or, a client or a customer. So we really have to be mindful of that. Some of the channels that we typically use, especially right now, depending on the audience, we use Twitter, we use Facebook, we're using Instagram, but we're also using LinkedIn. And for many of those kind of professional contacts and people that you want to get in front of from an expertise perspective, it's a great opportunity to integrate that into your social media side of your planning for this campaign. Other things that you need to think about: what your budget is. And that probably should have been something we talked about in the beginning. But the budget is important, especially if you're kind of going outside of things that are fairly low cost, like social media, your e-communications, your PR and media. If you're integrating any kind of digital marketing into this, or ads, or really targeted marketing, then it's important to make sure you set a budget, because you want to make sure that, one, you stay within that, two, that you can determine what your return on investment is, and three, that you can really kind of hold yourself or your team accountable to its performance. If you have too many things happening at once, it's hard to kind of determine what's working and what's not. The great thing about digital and social media is that it's pretty easy to figure out where people are going and what they're doing and how they're responding. So I highly recommend when you're outlining this and you're looking at your audience and what you're trying to accomplish, keep budget in mind, but also, play with this a little bit. It may be that this first micro campaign that you do teaches you something about maybe, integrating things differently in the next one. Some of the things that we like to measure, definitely engagement. We want to see where people are going, what they're doing, how they're engaging with our content. Are they, responding to it? Are they just viewing it? Are they clicking through and going to where we want them to go to then make that action that we'd like to call their attention to? The other thing that we're looking at is, how many people are sharing this information? With any type of campaign, you want to be able to increase your audience bandwidth. And so being able to make sure that your information is being shared and engaged with is really important. We also look at, especially if it's a fundraising campaign, obviously contributions, how many people have contributed, what type of money was raised. And if it's a product or service, then we're looking at numbers, based on people's purchasing or signing up for something that you might be offering. So there's some great things to be looking at. The other thing, and the last thing I'll talk about that's probably a really important piece of any kind of campaign, are the hashtags that you use and the people or the businesses or companies or organizations that you tag. And really, from an audience perspective, it gives you such great visibility across multiple audiences, including leveraging other people's audiences to really connect with people that might be interested in what you're doing. So using hashtags and choosing some specifically for your campaign is a great way to increase that audience awareness and to kind of expand that audience reach for your campaign, but also thinking about who you specifically want to tag, maybe who you're partnering with on this message that you're putting out, that will also help you grow your audience base. And you should also hopefully be providing some value too on that if you're partnering with someone, that there's value in them wanting to share the message with you, because their brand is going to be in front of your audience. So I hope these were helpful tips for you today. If you're planning some type of small campaign, I like calling them micro campaigns, things that are very kind of short-lived but really need to be impactful and powerful. Hopefully these are some great tools that you can begin to integrate as you're creating those plans. If you'd like to learn more about what we do, please visit www.mymabs.com. That's MYMABS.com. Learn more about what we do, how we help organizations and businesses grow their marketing and revenue generation. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in those sections. And we invite you to subscribe and share our YouTube channel, where you can find other videos and information about marketing, fundraising, and revenue generation. Thanks so much for joining me today.